roots of Orthodox spirituality.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.
Hello, dear listeners. We are continuing to read from the book Family Life, the 4th volume in the series Spiritual Counsels by Saint Paisios. Today we will start part 3, Children and Their Obligations. The blessing of the parents is the greatest inheritance children can have. This is why children must take care to have their blessing.
Crossing the waters as on dry land, in that way escaping from the evils of Egypt's land.
Chapter 1. Children, their joys and their difficulties. Little children. Yeronda, I have often noticed that infants smile during Divine Liturgy. They don't only do this during Divine Liturgy. Babies are in constant touch with God, for they are free of concerns. What did Christ say about little children? In heaven their angels do always behold the face of my Father who is in heaven. Matthew 18, verse 10. They are in constant communication with God and with their guardian angel, who is continually by their side. In their sleep, they sometimes smile and sometimes cry because they see many things. Sometimes they smile when they see their guardian angel and play with them. He caresses them, teases them, plays with their hands, and sometimes when they see a scene of the evil one, they start to cry. Why does the evil one go to infants? Even this is helpful to them, for they feel the need to seek out their mother. Without this fear, they wouldn't feel the need to seek their mother's embrace. God permits everything for our good. When they grow up, do they remember what they saw when they were very young? No, they don't. If a little child could remember how many times he saw his guardian angel, he would fall into pride. This is why he forgets these things when he grows up. There is wisdom in the works of God. After being baptized, do they see these things? Naturally, after baptism they do. Yeroda, can an unbaptized child reverence the holy relics? Why not? Someone can even bless the child with the holy relics. Just today, I saw a little child who looked like an angel. "Where are your wings?" I asked him. He didn't know what to say. At the Kalivi, when springtime comes and the trees are in full bloom, I place some caramels on the bushes near the fence's gate, and I tell the little ones, "Go on, boys, pick some caramels from the bushes over there, for if it rains, they will melt and go to waste." Now, some smart little ones see what I've been up to, and they laugh. Some other ones actually do believe that the sweets grew on the bushes, and others just stand there wondering. Young children need a little sunshine too. Yeroda, do you put a lot of sweets there? Well, of course, why not? You see, I don't give the expensive sweets to the adults. I give them the traditional lukumi. When people bring me expensive sweets, I save them for the boys at the Athonite Academy. The Athonite Academy was established in 1748 on Mount Athos as an academy of Greek studies. Today it functions as an Orthodox high school under the jurisdiction of the Church. Even last night, here in the monastery, I planted sweets and small chocolates, and they've already blossomed. Did you see them? The weather was good, the earth was fertile, and you had dug the ground well, and they bloomed right away. The elder had laid wrapped sweets and small chocolates on the freshly dug soil, placing tiny lilac flowers on them to make them look like they had blossomed. Wait until you see what a beautiful flower garden I'm going to plant for you. We won't need to buy any sweets and chocolates for the children. Why, we can have our own sweet garden right here. Yeroda, some pilgrims who saw the sweets you planted in the garden were puzzled and thought to themselves, some children must have put them there. Didn't you tell them that it was an older child who planted them? The guardian angel protects the children. Yeroda, why does God give a guardian angel to each person when He Himself can protect us? This is God's particular care for His creation. The guardian angel is God's economy, providence. We are in debt for this. The guardian angels are especially protective of the young children. Oh, how they watch over them. Once, 2 little children were playing out on the street. One was aiming to throw a stone at the other one's head. The other child couldn't see this. At the last instant, his angel diverted his attention, and he quickly moved aside and was saved. Another time, a mother had taken her baby to the field. She nursed the baby, placed him in his cradle, and went to work in the field. Some time later, she went to check on her child and couldn't believe her eyes. The baby was holding a snake and looking at it. You see, after the breastfeeding, a drop of milk had remained on the baby's lips. The snake went to lick the milk with its tongue, and the child grasped it with his hand. The mother started screaming. The baby got frightened, opened his hand, and the snake glided away. God protects the children. Then, Yeroda, why is it that many children suffer from illnesses and so on? God knows what will benefit each person, and He provides accordingly. He won't give something which will not be of benefit to the person. For example, He sees that it will benefit us more if He gives us a weakness or a disability than if He protects us from being harmed or disabled. Baptism. Yeroda, what will become of the departed people of northern Epirus who weren't baptized? Well, most of them had been air baptized by their parents. When the life of a newborn is endangered, then even a lay person can baptize him in the name of the Holy Trinity by raising the newborn in the air and making the sign of the cross with him. Well, there are also nurses who air baptize babies. One nurse baptized a baby in a basin full of water. She thought this was better than an air baptism, but God saw her good intentions. The newly illumined Christians have so much grace. On one occasion, I was able to see that from among 350 people, there was one woman who had been baptized. I asked, "Who is she?" And they told me that she was a Turkish woman who had been baptized. Her face was full of light. All the others looked like barbarians in comparison to her. Yeroda, is it appropriate to give children 2 names during their baptism? If the parents are going to argue and get divorced over it, they can even give the child 3 names. What I don't like is the shortened names they give to children: Vicky, Pepi, Mimi. Yeroda, a woman lost her baby during the 5th month of her pregnancy and is worried because the baby was stillborn and there was no chance to even do an air baptism. She wasn't responsible for the miscarriage, so she must have confidence in the mercy of God. God maintains the records for these children. Yeroda, my mother told me that my little brother died a few hours after birth, and she didn't have the chance to baptize him. I advised her to tell this to her spiritual father. Since she wanted to baptize the child but couldn't do so in time, there are extenuating circumstances. There are women who have abortions and kill their babies. We do not know the judgment of God. It would be a serious sin of omission if she didn't have her child baptized out of neglect and indifference and he died unbaptized. You dealt with the matter rationally. This is the theology of rationalism. Once I told a group of people that there was a child in northern Epirus who had been baptized 3 times, once by the grandmother, once by the grandfather, and once by the mother, and all secretly from each other, because they all believed that he hadn't been baptized. Someone in the group jumped up to say, "That is a non-canonical thing to do." "My good man," I retorted, "did they baptize the child 3 times dogmatically? This child was blessed 3 times. Yeroda, does God arrange for people to see departed relatives in their sleep in order to speak with them so that they may be helped in their faith, in their repentance?" "Yes, I think I've told you of such an event. Once there was a monk on Mount Athos who was from a Bulgarian village where a lot of people weren't baptized. He told me that when he was still a layman and hadn't been baptized yet, he dreamt that he saw his little nephew, who had died a short time before, standing outside of a very beautiful garden and crying. There were a lot of children inside this garden playing happily. "Why don't you go inside too?" he asked his nephew. "How can I go inside? I'm not baptized," he responded. After having that dream, he went immediately to get baptized and then related his dream to the priest. This is how God arranged for everyone to realize the value of baptism. Following this event, the villagers started baptizing their children. Yeroda, some couples who were married through a civil ceremony want to baptize their children. Is it permissible? Why shouldn't it be? After all, it's not the poor children's fault. Just the fact that they wish to baptize their children shows that there's still something inside them. They're not entirely indifferent. Apparently, they got confused somewhere along the way. But in order to help them, one must discover the reason why they didn't get married in church in the first place, and then find out why they want to baptize their children. Yeroda, does a nun have to send gifts to the child she baptized when she was still in the world, aside from the prayer she will offer for the child? Well, a nun is now free from such customs and obligations. Now her parents can do something if they wish to. The nun will help with her prayers. Do you mean if her parents think of it on their own? Yes, the nun mustn't oblige them. She can pray for God to enlighten them. In any case, the godparent has a great responsibility. My parents had once promised their friend's family that someone in our family would baptize one of their children. When that time came, everyone in our family had gone away, so they asked me to be the godfather. I was 16 years old then, and I didn't want to baptize the child because I was quite aware of the great responsibility I would have to assume. I was in a tough spot, so I prayed for guidance. My Lord, I prayed, if he is destined to become a good person, take all the years from me and give them to him. But if he is to become an evil person, take him now that he is still an angel. I baptized the child, giving him the name Paul. He died 1 week later. He is secure in heaven now. Orphaned children. Yeroda, if young children lose their father, should they be allowed to see him dead? It's better not to. It's tough enough to speak to adults about the death of a loved one. You can imagine how much harder it can be for children. Up to what age? Well, that depends on the child. Should little children be taken to the gravesite? Yes, they can be taken to the gravesite. They can be told, your father went to heaven from here. If you're well behaved, he will come from heaven to see you. I remember when my grandmother died, they took me to a friend's house so I wouldn't see the funeral and know what happened. When I was at the friend's house, everyone played with me and entertained me. I was laughing, and my parents and kindred were crying. When I got back home, I kept asking, where is grandmother? She's coming, they told me. So I was waiting for my grandmother to come home again. Later on, after some time had passed, I found out that she had died. It doesn't help young children to see their beloved family members dead. Yaroda, young children experience immense pain and loss when their mother dies. There is no greater loss for a child. Children feel more orphaned when they lose their mother instead of their father, and this is why their pain and loss is greater. It is rare to see a father be like a mother to the orphaned children. However, they will find consolation in paradise. They will have something to receive there. An orphan will enter paradise with lower scores, just like Greeks in a foreign country can enter the Greek universities without entrance examinations. This was said in 1992, when the special law was still in effect. In other words, orphan children are covered by the law of God and will enter paradise with less effort, while everyone else will have to struggle more. I consider the children who have been deprived of their parents' love as being blessed, for they have made God their Father from this present life. As for their parents' love, of which they have been deprived, it's been deposited into God's treasury and is accumulating interest. But even in this present life, God in His goodness shall help them, because from that moment He takes their parents, He is in a way obligated to protect them. What does the prophet David say? He upholdeth the fatherless and the widow. Psalm 146, verse 9. God naturally has greater love and concern for the orphans. In this life, God provides more rights to orphan children than He does to other children. If the orphan turns the knob to goodness, then he will make great progress. However, if he should think, I have endured suffering, and now I will cause others to suffer like I did, then he will definitely be destroyed. Yaroda, does becoming an orphan have unpleasant repercussions throughout the orphan's life? What are you talking about? Yes, orphans may be a little reserved, restrained, or shy. They don't have that happiness, that liveliness that those children who are sated with their parents' tender love have. But this restraint of theirs serves as a spiritual brake which helps them in this life and provides deposited reserves for the other. Do you think God doesn't take notice of their humble and reserved nature? Do you think that He won't provide somehow for these orphans? This is why we must embrace the orphan, especially the one who has lost his mother, with pain and with fervent love, to give him warmth and to encourage him until he opens his heart. And when an orphan has philotimo, we really must help him contain his enthusiasm and prevent him from suffering exhaustion in his attempts to express gratitude. Saint Arsenios the Cappadocian grew up as an orphan, having lost both parents. If he had not faced his orphanhood in a spiritual and courageous way, he would have been tormented by psychological problems. But you can see what tremendous courage he had, what great struggles he undertook, and what really amazes me is that his bones were soft like cotton, like a sponge. At the time of the exhumation, when I transferred his bones, his ribs and his spine were very brittle and cracked easily. Only 2 spinal discs, his pelvis and his tibia and fibula, were somewhat strong. He was a rather unwell man, and yet he endured such great journeys on foot. He walked as if he were flying. From this one can see the supernatural strength given to him by God. So, in providing for orphans, Christ will most certainly not be held back. Restrictions for children are necessary until they come of an age. Children should always feel that they have a great need for advice, especially during their critical adolescent years, so they won't slide down the sweet slope of worldliness which fills the soul with anxiety and distances it forever from God. They must enter into the spirit of obedience. They should understand that hidden within their obedience to their parents lies their own gain or advantage. so that they will submit happily and move freely in the spiritual realm. Do you see how we limit the freedom of a little child? First, the embryo is restricted within his mother's womb for 9 months. Then, the newborn child is placed in a cradle. After 5 or 6 months, the cradle is surrounded by protective bars. Later, the child is not left alone outside, which prevents falls and accidents. If left alone, a young child can easily fall and get hurt. All of these measures are essential for a child to grow up safely and securely. It may seem as though the child is deprived of freedom, but without these measures, the child would be exposed to danger from the very first moment. But children don't understand, neither when they are small that they need restrictions, nor when they are older that they need different kinds of restrictions. And that's why they search for freedom. But what kind of freedom is this? Freedom to hurt themselves? That kind of freedom will lead them to destruction. They need to understand that until they finish their school, until they receive their degree, until they mature as whole and well-balanced human beings, certain restrictions are necessary. For if they are seriously damaged once, they can be destroyed. They must feel the restriction as a necessity, as a blessing from God. They must be grateful to their parents for imposing restrictions. They should know that everything their parents do is done out of love. No parent ever restricts his child out of malice, even if they may sometimes behave badly toward them. And even if parents tighten the reins a little more, this also reveals their great love. They mean well. They restrict the children in order to safeguard them from danger. Even a gardener will secure a newly planted tree by wrapping it tightly with wire, and in the process harm it a bit. When the bark of the tree is damaged, the good God provides for the wound to heal in time. And if God heals the tree's wound, you can imagine much more healing He will provide for His creation, the human being. In other words, if parents restricted a child a little more than what was necessary, and his feelings were hurt, will God not take care of him? Of course, children ought to talk with their parents and share their thoughts with them. Just as a monk in the monastery has his elder to whom he reveals his thoughts and is helped, a child too should communicate with his parents. Ideally, a young child should first confess to his mother and then to the spiritual father. For just as when the child hurts his leg, and the parents take him to the doctor and learn what they have to do to help in the healing process, they should likewise know what sort of spiritual or social problems the child has in order to help. If a child shares his problems only with the spiritual father, then how can the parents help their child if they don't even know what sort of problems he's having? The difficulties of the young in school. Children who are able to judge, to discern, and are clever may encounter problems from time to time, and they suffer as a result. They want to take care of everything in a rational manner and attempt to do things which may be beyond their capabilities. They may have a strong mind, but they just don't know how to apply the brakes. They do experiments on themselves as if they want to test their endurance, and in the end they suffer. If they were to humble themselves, their good judgment would help them make good progress. On the other hand, young people who don't have such a sharp mind and sense of judgment may not even have problems, but they may also not be concerned in a good way over such things. There are so many students who, although they have studied and know the material, will not go and take the exam because they fear failure. Even though they're quite capable, out of sheer cowardice, they create a situation of panic. But if they humbly said, "Bless me, that I may do well, because I cannot do it on my own, but with your blessing I will try," then with humility they will receive both the grace of God and divine enlightenment. Later, as they begin to take the exams, they can also pray to their patron saint, who will also help, depending on the faith and devotion they have. Yaroda, a girl studying in a foreign country, wrote me the following. "I am troubled by the thought that I will never be able to make any further spiritual progress. So, has this blessed soul come to such a conclusion about herself from living in Europe? She didn't go there to advance spiritually or to live in a monastic community. She went there to learn what she needs to learn in her chosen field of study. She only has to try to maintain her existing spiritual condition. She shouldn't try to make spiritual progress over there. After all, the Europeans are advanced in the sciences, not in spiritual matters. She mustn't pressure herself beyond her limits, and she shouldn't take everything to heart. It just isn't worth the effort to give one's heart and to suffer over such things. Let her consider her time there as if it were some military service. In the army, one endures a great deal of effort. One wearies, and many times one is treated very harshly. In Europe, at least one is treated politely, with the European mentality, even if that treatment is superficial and hypocritical. It was to be expected that she would have encountered these difficulties in a European university, for we see similar things happening in Greece as well. But what makes the difference is that here in Greece, being an Orthodox nation, those who have spiritual interests can find spiritual help. With a little patience and a little careful attention, the difficulties will be overcome. While she's there, she should take advantage of her free time to study and to pray as well, in order to be spiritually nurtured. The applied effort she will make to progress will enable her to become fully absorbed in her studies and will alienate every evil thought or youthful temptation.
Between us and the one you brought forth, O Lady of all people, intercede for us.
Thank you for listening, dear listeners. Our time is up. We will continue once again where we left off in our next show. Until then, be well.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy. Lord, have
Readings of Orthodox Spirituality.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.